when I share with people what I'm doing with AI, I say, well, I talk to my team. Well, I'm actually referencing my agents. You have not used AI if you think software engineers are going away. I didn't lose any agency. In fact, you just gave me a megaphone.
This is the Future of the Future show. I am your host, Mateo Berbejicio. We are living through a moment that feels bigger than just another tech cycle. From mobile to cloud to AI, each wave has changed not only the way that we build, but how we think, create, and interact with machines. But are we now crossing a deeper threshold, a true digital renaissance? One where interfaces disappear, systems collaborate with us, and the very identity of builders begins to shift. That raises very big questions. Are we still using tools or starting to work alongside them? What does it mean to design in a world where AI is a co-creator? And as roles blur, who are the new builders emerging in this landscape and what do they actually do? To explore this, I am joined by Lee Williams, founder and CTO of Edelleye Digital, someone who has spent years building technology not just to function, but to feel something. His career spans over 2 decades of digital innovation, working across large-scale environments and transformative moments in digital media, mobile, and emerging technologies, giving him a front row seat to how each wave reshapes both products and people. Lee, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you bet. You bet. Happy to be here.
Lee, you've been close to multiple waves of digital transformation from early mobile to today's AI era. What are the key inflection points in your career that made you realize we are entering a true digital renaissance?
Well, having been through those waves, they come on just like that, like waves. It's like surfing in the ocean when you're looking for a killer wave, right? And you don't really know what's coming next. You just see the signs, right? You just see the kelp bobbing a certain way. Maybe the wave height increases a little bit, stuff like that. And there would be one other thing I would point out about a wave, this digital renaissance we're in the middle of, which is, it's coming when you start to see a couple of things happen. So I'll give you an example of when I saw that with the .com era. Somebody started pulling me aside into investment rooms. It's like, I don't want any money. And they would ask me questions like, yeah, but these people are throwing up these websites. Can you do one for Movie Phone? Can you do one over here? Can you do one over there? So the inflection point, the signs, are that you start to see a few people do something a little bit different.
Right.
And in that way, our inflection point, as an example, when it was the smartphone wave, it was the connecting people wave. Nokia called it connecting people, right? That wave was interesting to me because we were doing something different at the time. We were doing palms.
Yeah.
EAs, right? And the inflection point, the signs that were there during that wave of mobility is coming. It wasn't about mobile technology. Everybody had a phone.
Yeah.
It was about some people started doing something different with it. So as an example at Palm, we focused on doing something people couldn't do previously, just solving a little problem for them. So like, can I enter in, we called it the Zen of Palm. Within 2 clicks, can I enter in a contact while talking to somebody and keeping your eyes on the rest of the room? Because that inflection point, what it meant was that this wave 1 was here, was interesting, right? The second thing it meant, it surprised everybody. The wave surprised everybody with mobile,
Yeah.
which was that you could be more productive with this wave than you could previously. It's where you could be productive and how you could be productive that really mattered. And we're in a digital renaissance right now. So there are a lot of questions to that as to where we're going. But I'm already seeing, I myself am using, building, orchestrated, and seeing people pretty much across the board just now figuring out that they can do something different now with AI, you
Yeah.
know? So that's why those are all the signs to me of where we're at and why.
So take us back to those early days of mobile and smartphones, because you were referencing some of that as well, how you were able to read that wave. Um, and you were saying about some of the stuff that people misunderstood about how profound the shift was in terms of human computer interaction, right? Tell us more about that. What were people missing at that point in time?
Yeah, we do this thing as humans, and this thing being we focus on technology and its capability. I don't think people really think that way. I mean, geeks like me
Yeah.
do, but that's not really what you pay attention to. And I'll give smartphones as an example. Connecting people in unique ways they hadn't done before, had an anthropological impact that mattered. It wasn't about the technology. Anybody can get 3G, get 5G. Anybody can get a device in their pocket that has stuff on it and enables you to do things. It was anthropological. It was you could do something differently you couldn't before. You could you could think differently. Your tools were different. You were faster. You were smarter. You had what I would describe in product terms as superpowers.
Yeah.
So that's what the smartphone era was like. Was it opened my eyes and some of my team's eyes that I was working with, and eventually an industry's eyes, um, to the real impact being anthropological, being you could do something different you couldn't before, and you could hand out these superpowers to everybody.
And you had a front row seat to all of these changes, right? Because of some of the, maybe for the benefit of the audience, you can tell the audience what some of the companies were that you were working at this precise moment in time, and some of the amazing projects you were working back then.
Yeah, I had started out as a software developer and development or technology lead for a company called B. And it was founded by the former head of Apple's engineering group, so R&D team, Jean-Louis Gassier, and the guy who managed the Newton Message Pad project, Steve Sackelman, and the guy who created the first Nintendo. And they formed this company called B and started doing this Don Quixote thing, I called it, where you would go chase windmills. And the windmill being Windows Mobile or Windows, and secondarily Mac OS or Apple. So we were chasing them, we were bettering them, we were doing, in our minds anyway, and doing all of this stuff. Well, one of the board members, JLG, he was a board member at Palm. And he turned around at one point and said, Lee, will you go come over here and evaluate the team and the product? And I said, well, I'm a product guy now. So, and the product I was evaluating was basically Palm, but it had a Palm. I came back to the board and gave him the bad news. The bad news was that the B guy, Lee, looked at what we had and said, you don't really have anything.
Right.
That's hard news to deliver to stakeholders in a board, right? Especially a company at the time was worth more than GM. We were up in the Procter and Gamble GM territory, right? And I'm saying to the board, you really don't have anything here at a technology level, but even more so at a product level. And they, you know, a couple of the, why do you say that? And well, it's actually a microkernel with collection of C libraries. So it's just got a pretty skin.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, to take it to the next level, I need to be constructive here for you guys. So take it to the next level. I'd recommend this type of roadmap. And the roadmap was smartphones. And we went two directions at Palm at that time. A lot of people don't realize this. We went two main directions. Palm was also a hardware company, but we spun it off, according to my recommendations and roadmap, we spun it off to be a software company.
Right.
So there was Palm, the hardware company, and then there was the software company. Well, then we open licensed the software and then signed up clients. One of the clients was Handspring, if anybody knew those. I enabled not just the first Trio smartphones with that software, but I took it a step further. We went and signed up Sony.
Right.
We went and signed up Samsung, Kyocera. We were licensing a software platform. And the heart of that platform wasn't the original code base of Palm. People don't realize this happened with Palm. It was B. It was the operating system we had created and the user interfaces we had created at B. So longer story short, those were some of the first smartphones. So some of my teams created the very first smartphones, the first tablets, all of those things, the first internet appliances, the first media computers, SMP boxes, and those were all from the same team members. And at one point, we got the attention of Nokia. At least I did. And Nokia asked me to come up and talk to them, and I spent 2 days in Helsinki. I did psychological evaluations. I talked about my background and history, and they eventually turned around and asked me to run their smartphone group. So at the time, Nokia was shipping 40% of the phones globally. 40%. And then the whole category of smartphones was exploding. We were in, I moved abroad, and so on and so forth. So that's a little bit about my background. So when I'm talking about what these inflection points look like,
Right.
.com era would be one of them. Secondarily would be mobile, and I think we're seeing one right now with AI.
So let's talk about that. If we compare interfaces over time from desktop to mobile to AI copilots, no pun intended with that word, what's fundamentally changing in how humans talk to computers today?
Well, let me first highlight what has not changed across those eras. What hasn't changed is that humans still want agency.
Right.
They still want to be themselves. They still want to own their own destiny. That's one of the most human things you can imagine, right? So that hasn't changed, that humans still need agency. In the AI era, you can see the signs of humans questioning their agency and capability because they view AI as a threat.
Yep.
That's one of the people say, well, AI is going to take my job.
Yeah.
Right? That's a very common topic. It's because people are afraid at a very human level of losing their agency with the technology, with the wave. So that hasn't changed. What has changed is, in my opinion, AI, and this is the way I've embraced it, is it's just a new tool for your toolbox. It's just, you can just do some different things with it. I can now do some things in a fraction of the time I couldn't before. I didn't lose any agency. In fact, in my opinion, and this is how I've embraced it, and how I've coached other people up to look at AI, is that you just gave me a megaphone.
Right.
You just gave me a microphone, a megaphone, a different tool for my toolbox. Now, you still need to be, if anybody worried about their job, so to speak, you don't build a house with a hammer.
Yep.
You do it with a blueprint. You do need to know how to hang some drywall. Roofing can be hard, and you don't just need a hammer. You need to know what you're doing. That is fundamentally true with AI. So I think that's what has changed is this capability, but I don't think the agency question for most people has gone away or probably will ever go away. We are natural creatures and
Yeah.
learning creatures in this way. So we'll see.
So sometimes we hear people saying that it's becoming more collaborative, right? It's that we are collaborating with systems, and then we are we are giving some agency to the systems and created agents that are doing part of the work, right? It's more like okay, like you're building a house. Now you have a few workers with you that, okay, go build this wall, right? And you are collaborating with them. Do you think that goes too far, or do you think we're moving from using tools to collaborating, or still it's using tools and there's hype around it, but it's still we are using tools?
Well, I think at that level, you have to start to look at the interface. When I look back on .com era, you're just really providing a new human interface
Yep.
for information management. When you look back at the mobile era, same thing. You're just now doing it with telecommunications, but you're changing the interface. We even call them surfaces now. My AI agents, they call when I say write a mobile app, they say, okay, which of those surfaces are you going to put this, put this on? So the user interface starts to become really more relevant. In AI, it's the same thing. The surface is changing. The user interface is changing. You'll hear people say things like some of the big guys in tech these days. They will tell you that software engineers are going to go away. Well, you have not used AI if you think software engineers are going to go away. In fact, let me just share with you, everything I do in AI is because of my software capability and experience. It's my coding knowledge that guides me to create great things. So in that way, the interface has changed. The only thing that's changed in my mind from a use standpoint or a product or service standpoint is AI does tolerate, it's basically a system you don't understand. You can still be ignorant and use AI.
Yep.
You couldn't say that about a phone.
Yep.
You couldn't say that about .com. You can say it about AI. The interface, the tool, the logic, the ability to aggregate data and information across, well, globally, all of that, you're really enabling ignorance at a whole different level than we ever have before. So that's, in my opinion, that's how to think about AI is that, okay, now where do your interfaces need to change to do that? So you don't need just a surface. I'm designing systems right now that it's about agent to agent communication.
Yep.
Right now, I'll tell you right now, it shouldn't be a controversy to say it, but I'll throw it out there. SEO is dead.
Yeah.
It's AEO now.
Yep. Yep.
And in general, this agent to agent communication is the new world. This is part of the wave, part of the inflection point. So that's how I would feel. Does it make you feel more collaborative? Yeah, but with who? I think it's still the fundamental question. And by enabling anybody to be ignorant of AI and still use it, there are, of course, are a bunch of things to think through there.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the roles in the world of software engineering, right? The traditional boundaries between roles, engineer, product manager, designer, they seem to be starting to blur. Do you think we are really heading towards a new archetype of AI orchestrator? And what does that person actually do day to day?
Yeah, today I think two things come to mind. One, I think orchestration is exactly the way to describe it. When I share with people what I'm doing with AI, I say, well, I talk to my team. Well, I'm actually referencing my agents.
Right, right, right.
Previously, I was not. If you flash back 2 years, my team were a bunch of people,
Yeah,
human. But now my team, because I create these agents and I can guide and orchestrate them, and they have very specific roles. I have research agents, right? I have project agents. I have developer agents.
yeah,
And then I have different LLMs that the agents are really good at certain areas and with certain roles. Coding agents and developer agents are a little bit different than your research agents.
right.
Um, so in that way, it's I think the fundamental question to ask as an orchestrator or conductor. I also like to refer to it as being a conductor of a band or an orchestra, right? I think the fundamental question there is psychological, and it's about the organizational design. And I think that's what shifted in the role, is that where previously you might have been managing in silos or a department within a company, you're no longer doing that. You're orchestrating across a whole different landscape. It's a different kind of music.
Yeah,
And you're seeing this too if you follow the news or tech at all, or even in general population news or current events. You're seeing the same thing. You're seeing a CEO saying, "I don't need developers because I now have AI agents,"
yeah,
and he's exposing his ability to orchestrate now and conduct the music in a whole different way.
yeah.
You're seeing product managers and project managers do the same thing. They're like, previously both roles were dependent on developers. You needed to know how to code, and you were captive to those coders, is how I like to phrase it. And now you no longer need to be. With something like Anthropic's Claude, what I can do with some Claude and a little bit of time is more than I could code myself.
Yeah.
And that's the way I would encourage other people to start to think about their role. What have you always wanted to do that you couldn't with the code, with development, with marketing? Because there's an agent for that. And if there isn't, make one.
So will that be your biggest advice for engineers that are building their career right now or shifting from just writing code to become an orchestrator and start building, really get your, get around doing that? What would be your advice?
Yes. And I would say the same thing for a developer that I would say to a marketer or a CEO or CTO or whoever that may be in the chief seat, is start thinking about what you couldn't do before.
Yeah.
So market your solution. In fact, there are whole agent frameworks now. You could create a startup with 12 agents that 3 other people have defined already. You can just go to GitHub and grab them.
Yeah.
And create your own company that you always wanted to. Previously, you needed to go hire a CEO. You needed to go hire a CFO. You needed a sales team. You needed all of these things. So if I'm a developer, you don't necessarily need those things anymore. You can do startup in a box.
Yeah.
And take your wildest idea. I'm doing an idea right now I call Green Life. And Green Life is something I've worked for mentally for 3 years. I said, there should really be an app that does this thing. Well, I have my agent team creating Green Life based on everything I know how to do. And I have to orchestrate them to get there, right? But I'm doing something that 3 years ago I couldn't even do without that team. So that's how I would encourage developers to think through their thing as well. The bottlenecks are there, they're different. So having X number of tokens would be good.
Yeah. What are the biggest mistakes companies are making right now when trying to adapt to this new paradigm?
Well, one of them is people think AI replaces people.
Yeah.
That's the biggest mistake I see. It's not true. It's not true. You need an orchestrator and a conductor more than you ever did.
Right.
With AI, right? People think, they don't need to collaborate anymore because it's just a system talking to a system. You still need to collaborate. And I'll take it a step further where I see companies failing or falling down is that they don't realize that their products aren't technology, they're products. They have a history, a comfort level, a mystery. I, as an example, am working on another project where what I'm having to remind people of, they are failing fast with AI. They are making some mistakes, as in they think AI can replace people. But they're missing the architecture. Right. I call it a trust architecture.
Right.
And when I look at the product, I look down at it and I say, well, you need confidence labeling here. Because your AI data, you know what? I looked at it. It's wrong. So, but you still have to go through this, as I've explained to them and coach them up on. You still need to go through this process where at a fundamental level, you're talking about trust and you need to have transparency and you need to be able to label information with people, because AI is actually going to give you more inference issues and hallucinations than any developer ever did before with what you're doing. So those are some of the things I see and hear.
So let's, I know this is a hard question and it's the $1,000,000 question and nobody has a crystal ball, but if you look 5, 10 years from now, what do you think makes for the best engineers and builders who are going to thrive in this digital renaissance?
Yeah. I think at the heart of technology is something nobody wants to talk about. It's creativity.
Right.
Technology is not just about flops or bits and bytes or protocols or standards. Where technology really speaks, especially to people, is at a creativity level. You have to feel it.
Yeah.
When I watched Steve Jobs one time give a speech before he passed, and he called the interface lickable.
Right.
I'll never forget it. And when I did look for then on out, I looked down at Apple products and I saw lickable interfaces. You know what I mean? He called display PDF quartz. What? But that's the very also the gift that a guy like Jobs had. I would encourage others to focus on their creativity. Jobs was a creative master. He could sell you the shirt off of his back while schlepping technology, because he was very human. He was very emotional. Emotional. He talked about lickable
Yep.
things like that. So
Yep.
that's what I would encourage people to do is think of running the band. You're getting the band back together, as they would say in the Blues Brothers, right? We're getting the band back together. So I would encourage developers, think about getting the band back together.
Yeah.
But this time, dig deep, get a little more creative with what you're doing, because now you can do things. You could write a song that you could never write before.
Yeah. I love it, and I love it as an end to this amazing conversation, Lee, that could go on for ages. But thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it. Let's stay in touch, and maybe we can do this again in the future and see how things have how they are coming along.
I would like that, Mateo, and thank you so much for letting me speak. I appreciate it.